said some things that would indicate that social media and gadgets can get in the way of relationships. But I'm wondering if there's any studies about that kind of statement avoids or doesn't address that there's often a distribution of outcomes. And is there any evidence that some people are better off, that they are less socially isolated perhaps than they might be otherwise by some of the things that we increasingly say are getting in the way of relationships?
Yeah, I think we've alluded to the area, evidence in this area is very scant. And I think we've alluded to the only two I could find, we've alluded to the studies about the distracting aspects of having a phone and the fact that kids who are exposed to a lot of screen time have some difficulties with empathy. Kids who are experimentally deprived of screen time, their empathy skills get better after the deprivation. So that's about the extent of the reliable evidence. I think there is evidence that people who are shy, people who say social phobia and are very shy, and might formerly have not had that much in the way of social interaction, can have lots more interaction than they used to. And lots of it isn't of the face-to-face variety, which is not comfortable for them, but it's of the text-to-text variety, which doesn't present the same kind of threatening or anxiety-provoking stimulus and still is comfortable for them. So I think for very shy people or people with a lot of social anxiety, it has been an overall benefit.
And there's also a body of science looking at what behavior looks like on social media. So for instance, not looking at whether time on a device or time off of a device has any particular influence, but what happens when people post positive things on Facebook, and in terms of what kinds of things their network of friends post and what kinds of things their network of friends post. And it does look like when people post more positive things, there's this sort of this elevating viral effect of positivity. And that could teach us how to engage with these products more fruitfully or more lovingly, should we face the reality that, no, I'm not up here telling you that you should never go on Facebook or that you should never use your mobile device. It's more of how can you integrate this into your social life and your own personal life in a way that is least harmful and perhaps offers you some benefits. And anecdotally, we know that social media, Twitter and Facebook, have been intrinsic to really important social movements, people gathering around a cause and coming together to fight an injustice. And so again, I didn't mean to make it sound like these things are outright awful in the space of humanity, but there's some value in thinking carefully about how to best use them and engage with them.
Strange question. Have you looked at the role of pets with respect to love and personal interaction? I have plenty of women whose babies have grown up and they swear that they feel like they're getting a surge of oxytocin when they interact with their dogs, for example.
They are.
And they're using pets as proxies for personal relationships.
It's a real phenomenon, so that they're not kidding around. So dogs are the only species other than us that use gaze as an intimacy signal. And dogs are the only species other than us that seek out eye contact with humans. So no other, even wolves don't seek out eye contact with each other or with humans, but dogs do. And there's been a number of interesting studies looking at dogs and owners and oxytocin level and gaze length. And it's quite clear that as the gaze length between owner and dog goes up, oxytocin goes up in the dog and in the owner. And the line looks exactly like the line between mother and infant, and gaze length and oxytocin release. So dogs have tapped into that same mechanism of that gaze length produces when people gaze at each other and parents gaze at their children. It's a real phenomenon, and dog ownership confers a lot of surprising health benefits. This has been very slow to filter into medicine and still is not taken nearly seriously enough. There's a wonderful study in a cardiology journal in 2001 looking at 48 New York stockbrokers with labile hypertension, and 24 of them were randomized to receive lisinopril, which is a blood pressure medicine, and 24 of them were randomized to receive dog ownership. And dog ownership had a much stronger effect on curtailing high blood pressure during stressful events like mental arithmetic or giving a speech than lisinopril did. It was obviously much better. But still, no cardiologist is prescribing dog ownership. When you go to the cardiologist, they never say, oh, you should get a dog. And they might say you need lisinopril, but they never say you need a dog. So there's interesting medical uses of dogs in seizure control in some pediatric patients with epilepsy. I think dogs are an underutilized social emotional force. I often tell people to get dogs in my practice because, let's face it, dogs make people happy. They just do. Whether you, for whatever reason, it's pretty clear that they make people happy. So I think they're underutilized and everyone should have more dogs.
Thanks very much for your presentation. My wife will appreciate the fact that you're telling me to go watch more chick flicks, because that's an ongoing conversation with us. As much as I appreciate what's being presented here, it's difficult for me not to come away thinking to myself, if I was going to define love, that love is simply a chemical reaction that originates in the brain, not a particularly warm and fuzzy feeling. So I'm wondering if you could explain to me why that shouldn't be the fundamental takeaway, that love is a chemical reaction that originates in the brain.
Well, everything is a chemical reaction that originates in the brain, including the words that you just spoke, or your ability to have that thought. So like the old DuPont ad used to say, everything is chemistry. So every single aspect of your experience involves different neurotransmitters firing in different patterns. That's just a fact of life that I think underlies it, but doesn't detract from this, either contribute or detract